Hey, what's going on, guys? Nick here, Exit 12 Brewery, in the house, in the basement of Exit 12 Brewery. It is Sunday, and Sunday Fun Day. It's the last day of the week, unfortunately. Got to go back to work on Monday, but the good news is that I'm doing some home brewing things. I am kegging Brandon and I's New England, what was supposed to be IPA, but turned out to be more of a pale ale. Unfortunately, because in milling the grain, we had a screw that was loose at the base of the grain mill, so it did not mill all of the grain. It loosened at some point, and so we had quite a few whole husks of grain that were never milled. So we lost a considerable amount of points on our gravity, and instead of, the initial plan was to, because we're basically getting this weird plasticky medicinal flavor in all of our New England IPAs, and we don't know if it's a hot burn, if we're kegging it too soon, not letting it sit long enough, or whatever the case may be. We didn't know if we ferment in our catalyst fermenter for all of our hoppy stuff. I like to watch the fermentation, and so you can see it through that plastic, the clear plastic. So we wanted to do a split batch of 2.5 to 3 gallons, one that goes in the SS Brewtech, the metal brew bucket that we have, and then one batch that goes into the catalyst, because we didn't know if it was an issue with having our sparge water too high of a temperature, or if there's an issue with the plastic and we're not cleaning the plastic in the catalyst well enough. Anyway, that didn't happen. So we did not want to have a 2% beer. So what we ended up having to do was, instead of boiling for the normal 60 minutes, we boiled for 3 hours. We were up until 2:30 in the morning last weekend because of the mishap. But what's great is that with home brewing, with Brandon and I, we kind of have tried to figure out, you do better, you're better at troubleshooting, is essentially what I'm trying to say. So 3-hour boil gave us a 4-gallon yield, and instead of splitting it up, we threw it all in the catalyst. We used tangerine, experimental tangerine, and Centennial hops, I think, for this. And we used quite a bit. I can put the official amounts in the comments section, or maybe here. Either way. So I'm kegging the New England IPA today, and basically what I wanted to show you guys was kind of our kegging process, specifically when it comes to hoppy beers. First and foremost, we use this little ditty right here. This thing is called a bouncer filter, and it connects on your tubing on each side. But what we really love about it is that it's got two different, and I'm sure you can buy more, but two different filter screens. So this is the blue one. This is the finer filter. This is what I'm going to be using for the New England IPA, because you don't want hot matter and things like that kind of hanging out in the beer. So the other one is red, and that's a more broad filter, a bigger filter. And so if this blue guy gets clogged up easily, I will switch to the red one. We're not cold crashing. I've had the beer down here in the basement about 50 degrees or so, maybe 45 degrees. I've had it down here in the basement for only a couple hours. So I pressurized the keg. That's ready to go. It's already got CO2 in it. So trying to avoid any oxidation issues whatsoever if we can. So that is pretty much what we're doing. So follow along. Smells like a tangerine creamsicle. So it looks like it's filtering really well, even though we added added a lot of hops, something like 14 ounces of hops from, the 60-minute edition all the way down to the second dry hop. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. My name is Nick Lesagor.
Brandon Delakia.
Exit 12.
Brewery.
In the house.
Ooh, sultry.
Sultry, that's right.
Smooth.
And I gotta be soft because we have a new brew tubing setup.
Yeah. Production values through the roof.
That's right. But we put down some big buckos to get this...
medium buckos.
Medium on the bucko scale?
Medium.
To get this new equipment, go on our Twitter account. You'll see a picture of our new setup.
Yep.
At Exit 12 Brewery. And today we have a lot to talk about. The video you just saw was us kegging this little ditty right here. This is our Hazy Session Ale. I don't want to call it a New England IPA or a New England anything.
Sure.
Because we live in New England, and while that may be the name of the beer style, that's just not really what breweries around this area call it.
Yeah, or home brewers now, because we're now not going to call it that.
We are not.
So when you see IPAs and pale ales, they're going to be hazy. Deal with it.
Deal with it. So this is it. This is the one we were kegged in that previous video you saw. It is the experimental Tangerine and Centennial hazy. It ended up clocking in at around 4.5 or 4.7%. I can check it out.
4.7, I believe.
So, Brandon, what did you do with the water on this?
Yeah, so with most of our pale ales and IPAs, we do a chloride to sulfate ratio around 2-to-1, 3-to-1. I believe this one was 3-to-1. We try to keep our chloride under 200 ppms, and I believe we did sulfate right around 75, and calcium under 100 ppms as well.
Yeah, and so we used straight Pilsner malt. The Pilsner malt was locally sourced. I'm a big fan of using a ton of flaked oats, so we used flaked oats. We also used some other different malts, including the wheat that we locally sourced, as well as chit wheat that we locally sourced. So most of the malts in this, most of the grist was locally sourced malts.
Yeah. We just started using more chit wheat in, our hazier beers for head retention. I think it works pretty well. It gives it that nice white, foamy head without, and stays on the glass a little longer, which is nice.
For sure, yeah. And I think in terms of this beer, it only took about 5 days for it to finish out because of the low ABV, because of the issue I explained in the previous video. So it was in terms of the fermentation was very quick, and then the kegging was very quick, and we quick carved it, and here we are. Happy Homebrew Wednesday, by the way.
Homebrew Wednesday.
Kaboom on a Thursday. A rare weekday videos for us.
Movie magic. This is totally Wednesday.
That is definitely, for sure. So let's get a sniff.
What?
Let's get a sniff on it.
Cheers. So right off the bat, I'm getting a little stone fruit. It's very tropical. That tangerine's coming through pretty well. It's maybe even like an orange pith or not a rind, but definitely a lot of orange flavor coming through. Slight lemon, I believe I smell.
Yeah, I was actually going to say orange rind, so it's interesting that
Yeah, I can see that.
I can definitely see the pith aspect. It's more, it's fruitier like a pith, but
Yeah.
it definitely has like that oily orange, like outside of the orange aspect to it.
Yeah, and I don't think we talked about the color. That Pilsner malt is really making this shine. We didn't do any kettle findings or keg findings in this. And you'd say, why would you want to do kettle or keg findings for a hazy beer? Well, you might want to just, just clear out some of those particulates, during the process. So we've done it before with good results. We didn't need it for this. This is bright and shiny and awesome looking.
Yeah, I definitely love the aspect of it. And the nose, if we could just go back to the nose again, I get like it's orange juice, like it is but it's the concentrate orange juice, not like that fresh orange juice. It's like from concentrate, but it really pops with those, like, as you mentioned, the lemony, the orangey aspects, the tangerine. You get a little bit of a hint of like grapefruit with like the sugar on top, kind of aspect.
Very nice.
Not bad, right?
Yeah, very good description.
And I get on the back end, you mentioned the stone fruit, like a really nice peach, like a really fresh peach, like a warm peach that you just pulled off of the tree,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very tropical.
That experimental tangerine, that hop that we got it from Yakima Valley on sale because it was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And you would never know it. It shines through. Yakima Valley Hops stores their hops so well that you really would never know that the hop was a little bit older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when we get them, we put them in the freezer and we vacuum seal as well. We'll probably, when we get to our announcements, we'll talk about more about
Foreshadowing. I'm dying for you to try this. Brandon hasn't tried this. I took a sample yesterday, and let's dig in. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.
Salud. Okay. So right off the bat, you're definitely getting a lot of those, tangerine flavors right up front. It's still probably a little green, so it's definitely got some bitterness in there. And I believe we boiled some Centennial too for 60 minutes, very slight, but you can definitely get a nice little bitterness there, which I like on even a New England or hazy IPA.
And also, fun fact, I mentioned 60 minutes in the previous video, but it was actually a 120-minute edition because we did a 3-hour boil, and we didn't know, we thought it was just going to be 2-hour boil. So at the beginning of that second hour, we threw in that 1/4 ounce of the Centennial. So it ended up boiling for 2 hours, but fair enough. I get a supreme level of softness.
Yes.
I think when you take a big sip of it, you breathe through your nose and you just kind of let it sit on the palate. It really is soft. I mean, it's borderline pillowy. I think it could get softer, but it's definitely one of, if not the softest beer that
Challenge
we've
accepted. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we've really dialed in our water profiles for this, for hazy, ales, and also with the flaked oats. I think we're really getting to a point where we know exactly what we want for each beer. So yeah, I definitely get that supreme mouthfeel and softness, mouth softness on this, which is something we've been striving for a long time. So I'm glad that's paying off.
And in our research, we found that hops, even in dry hopping, whirlpooling and dry hopping, they do add some level of bitterness. Sure. So in adding, ultimately it was 12.5 ounces of hops. It was 3 ounces of a dry hop on High Krausen on day 2, and then another 3 ounces on day 5 or 6. Excuse me. I think it's going to add some level of bitterness that may be perceived as too green, like we were just mentioning, or whatever the case may be. I think that will die down in the beer, but I think that the fruit flavors in this beer, more than other hoppy beers that we've made, really shine through. Like we said, those like peaches and the tangerines and like the fresh Florida orange.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little lemongrass as well. It's very well balanced. I think it's one of the more well balanced pale ales, IPAs we've done.
Sessions.
I'm just saying, like, in that field, I think it's, even with our mess ups, which, we're still pretty young. We're green in our homebrew experiences as well.
Waka waka. Homebrewing reference.
So yeah, I think that I feel like we're gonna get this is a good step forward for us to get better at what we love. Which
Absolutely.
is these hazy beers.
Into more things we love. To your point, we love family. And a big announcement, personal announcement, I have a couple of the brew tubers beat me to it. I see you, Mike and Kevin. But my wife is pregnant. We're having a baby boy due in August. So I'll be chronicling some of that. Yeah. We're going to be refinishing the baby's room upstairs, putting in wood floors, one of my buddies and I, and painting it, giving it a nice fresh coat of paint, and doing some other cool things. So including a brewery build downstairs in the basement. So some cool stuff we have going on. Baby boy again due in August, so we're pretty pumped about that.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. And then things we have going on. So we have a homebrew competition that we're entering. Beers have to be in early April, and we'll be entering a few beers for that. I don't want to mention them on this video, but I'm sure if you dig back, Brandon said it at some point.
Rude.
And then what else do we going on? Like, what are we brewing next?
So we're probably going to try to do an actual IPA, and if we can get our ABVs up, we will hopefully succeed on that. We're gonna do a recipe that one of my first recipes. The beer is called Yokozuna. Can you put in the little like thing?
What?
The label. He's gonna put in the label. So yeah, I think we're gonna do that. Piggybacking off the good experience we had with this beer, and sort of bumping it up a little bit so it's in IPA country.
This time we'll make sure all the grain is milled.
I'll supervise him. I wasn't there.
That's
I
right.
was there for the brew day, but he decided to.
He saw the grain.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Do we have anything else to add?
So another thing we will be doing is a second video bi-weekly, I think, 2 times a month, which will be an informational video where we'll talk about certain homebrew processes and sort of learn with people, because we're not going to say we're an expert on anything. So if you guys have anything you guys want us to sort of talk about, put it in the comments and we'll get to it. But I feel like, explaining some stuff in our process and sort of learning stuff as we go along with you guys would be a fun little thing to get you guys a little more content.
Yeah, and to Brandon's point, it may be more on the end of just talking about our processes and what we do and what we like, what we prefer to do, while also giving some informational things, whether it's about hops or whether it's about yeast, or he's big into the water profiles and things like that. So we're thinking about doing some videos like that and seeing how they were received by everyone. The feedback on the first taste videos and the Homebrew Wednesday videos has been really great. So we're going to continue to make great content. We've invested money and time into doing this brew tubing thing, and you guys have replied with some awesome feedback, so we're going to continue to be doing that stuff too. Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all at Exit 12 Brewery.
Yeah, and happy Homebrew Wednesday.
That's right. Happy Homebrew Wednesday to everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. And
Enjoy all that. Enjoy the whole week.
cheers.
Cheers.